Now, you can't just go wandering into marijuana plantations in Colombia. First of all, the tracks are in such poor condition. And that was made worse since it was pouring with rain most of the time. Most outsiders don't want to go here because the word is that farmers protect their marijuana plantations with shotguns, and the area is also a stronghold for FARC guerrillas. And now, amongst other things, they levy a war tax on the drug trade here. It took days of meeting peasant farmers and community leaders way up in the hills and listening to their complaints about lack of government investment. In fact, farmers here are offering to pull up their marijuana if the government offers farm subsidies and low-interest loans, as well as investment in health and education. And of course, they also want better roads to get their legal crops to market.
Now, the main problem we had yesterday was that the weather was making things difficult. The rain was so heavy that it was making some of these dirt tracks impassable. The problem we've got today a little bit is that the FARC guerrillas who have certain influence in this zone have declared what they call an armed strike. Now, that means that they've forbidden public bus services to travel between towns, between villages, on the threat of if they do, they're going to burn them. And so what that does is make other drivers and other transporters nervous about driving. But we persuaded one guy in this truck to drive us about today. So we were driving along, minding our own business, and then just along the side of this dirt track, we came along this. And what we've got here is about 12.5 pounds, the farmer tells me, 12.5 pounds of marijuana, just drying here in the sun. They put down this black plastic to dry it on. It's just along the side of the road. 12.5 pounds here. What the guys, what the peasant farmers say is when they sell it, they'll sell this at about $2.50 a pound, so about $5 per kilo. Now that was only the small part of what we're talking about, because step inside here into this shack, and here what the farmers I've just spoken to say is about 50 pounds of more marijuana. Now this they call normal marijuana. The stuff that was outside there, they call it Colombian red, which has got a very different smell. This really hasn't got too much of an aroma at all. That outside, on the other hand. And what happens here is that smaller peasant farmers come from the surrounding area with the marijuana that they've just picked. They weigh it out here, pay them, they're on their way, and then the people that work in this area will then set out to dry the marijuana, and they will pack it. If you come in here, for example, this is a pot smoker's paradise. You've got bags stuffed absolutely full of the stuff. Sacks, in each of these sacks about another 50 pounds. So you go figure, I mean, there's at least 10 or 12 sacks there, each at 50 pounds. We're talking 500-600 pounds of marijuana. Another one, just here. So here we are in pothead heaven. Marijuana plants twice as tall as I am, and this particular variety around these parts in the hills of southwest Colombia they call creepy. Now that's not because it creeps across the ground, it's short for kryptonite. Now that gives us a clue. They say that this variety of marijuana is up to 3 times stronger than other kinds of marijuana that they grow around here. It's normally grown in greenhouses. Quite often it's grown hydroponically, and it's a hybrid. This is a kind of a late arrival to Colombia, but they're sowing a lot of this now because it's much more expensive, and this is some of the stuff that's also going for export. Now it's funny what you come across in these parts. Once again, going up a mountain road, minding our own business, and along comes this, a horse loaded with about 100 pounds of marijuana, about 50 kilos of marijuana, and this is just been freshly picked. And they're going to take this now down the hill to a place where they'll lay it out to dry, and then later they'll be pressing it. Come on. Come, come. This is a drying house for the weed, for the marijuana, and it's like a pot jungle. There's a row upon row upon row of marijuana that's been cut, and then the peasant farmers have hung it up on this wire, and they're drying it out now. But it's a shame you don't have smell with your TV, because all this marijuana in such a small space and drying under this black plastic is quite an amazing smell. So this one's hot off the press, about 25 pounds they tell me. It feels a little bit lighter than that, but it's certainly a good 10 kilos, good 20 pounds of pure pressed marijuana. Look at that. Look at the length, feel the width. It would certainly take you a long time to smoke all that. What they've got to do now is pack it up, tape it up, and then the hard part comes, and that's where the added value, a lot of the added value comes, is because they've got to figure out some way of smuggling it out from the hills and down to market.
Now, in a whole week in the area, we never found a single farmer who had actually smoked the stuff. One man told me that they didn't have any bad habits around there, except maybe to have a drink from time to time. Weird, isn't it? It's a bit like the rhyme of the ancient mariner. Water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink.
All day long there have been firefights between the guerrillas, between FARC guerrillas and the army, and it's going from one valley to the next. And right now, over there on that hillside, I think the guerrillas may be firing from this side and the army is up on the other side. It's difficult to tell where exactly because there's so much echo coming from around.
At times, the gunfire even threatened to drown out an interview I was trying to do with an Indian peasant leader.
La gente siembra marihuana y no algo legal.
La gente cultiva la marihuana porque pues es un cultivo que genera renta, ¿no?
It calmed down for a bit, but when we got back to the nearest village, it all kicked off again.
Ahora acá. Aquí está bueno.
Ándate por acá derecho y cruza cuando llegue a donde están los militares. Ajá.